the main part of our podcast, the part I'm very excited for, is our NFL preview. So we're going to start with contract holdouts.
Yeah, we're starting with the players who actually haven't reported to training camp. We're going to start with Le'Veon Bell, the outstanding running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was franchise tagged for the second straight year this year by the Steelers after failing to reach a long-term deal. He reportedly turned down about a 5-year, $70 million contract for the Steelers. The guaranteed money was unclear on that deal. This is likely Bell's last season in Pittsburgh. He's not happy with them. The Steelers don't seem overly happy with him. Todd Gurley just signed the largest contract for a running back in the league a couple weeks ago. 4 years, $60 million with $45 million guaranteed. Bell thinks with his dynamic out of the backfield, he deserved to be paid as a number 1 running back and a number 2 wide receiver. We'll see if he ever gets his money, but if he does, it probably won't be in Pittsburgh. Next contract holdout, Aaron Donald, the reigning defensive player of the year, one of the best players in football. He wants his money. Other Rams are getting paid. Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks, it's his turn. Rams, you got to give him his money. He's top 5 player in football. Pay the man. Khalil Mack, next up on the board. Now, John Gruden and Derek Carr are downplaying this. They think he'll be back in camp. He'll be back ready for the season. But it's worrisome if you're an Oakland fan. He is the heart and soul of your defense. He and Bruce Irvin off the edge could be special for the Raiders. They need him there. They need him reporting to camp, ready, learning the new system under John Gruden. And there's even reports that a trade could be in the mix if things don't get better soon. I don't know. I just know it's bad news for the Raiders if you don't get Mack back soon.
With a player of his caliber, I think there's not often the player that can play outside linebacker and DN of his caliber comes along. So I think that because with Aaron Donald, yeah, you can get a great defensive tackle, but to find a truly special pass rusher like him, you got to give him his money to keep him there.
Mack was first-team All-Pro a couple seasons ago at defensive end and outside linebacker. That's just insane. He's one heck of a football player. Now, next up, Earl Thomas, Seattle Seahawks. He wrote in the Players Tribune the exact words, "Extend me or trade me." He wants to be paid like he's the last standing member of the Legion of Boom, which he is. What he's saying, he's taken less in previous years so that they could afford everybody. Now that he's the big guy in the defensive backfield, he wants to be paid like it. And like he says, Seahawks, you've either got to extend him or trade him while you can still get something for him.
I still think that he wants to be, even if he denies that he wants to be on the Cowboys. I mean, everyone saw the clip of him telling the Cowboys to come get him. I don't think it's a matter of him. I think it's basically him saying trade me because he doesn't want to be there anymore. He knows the Seahawks aren't what they used to be, and he knows that they don't have as much of a future. So I don't think Earl Thomas even has any interest in being in Seattle anymore.
Now, last major contract holdout now that Julio Jones is reported and worked things out with the Falcons is Roquan Smith, the rookie linebacker for the Chicago Bears. He's the last draft pick anywhere unsigned this year, and it's having to do with a lot with his language in his contract. The Bears are trying to enter a clause in there where if Smith was suspended for some on-field fiasco with the new helmet rule or something of that nature, that they could take money away from his guaranteed money, and Smith just wasn't having that. I think Chicago, it's something that other teams haven't really been doing. I don't know why Chicago's trying to do that. Just rookie deals are already basic enough. You've got the money slot and the year slot. Just agree to the contract so he can get there, be on the practice field. He's going to be starting weak side inside linebacker. So you got to get him on the training field.
Especially for rookies, holdouts are bad. I mean, if you look a few years ago when Joey Bosa held out, even if you're a supremely talented player like him, it's tough missing your rookie minute because Joey Bosa came out and he didn't look good at all. And you look now and he's a stud. More on Joey Bosa later. But he, especially for a rookie, obviously it doesn't matter as much for Le'Veon Bell and players that are already established, but for a rookie, especially someone learning a new system, it's so important to be there.
Look, we know all these guys are going to be in shape even if they're not in training camp, but like Reed said, training camp for a rookie, you got to learn the whole NFL's playbook, the whole system, and as an inside linebacker, you got to know where guys are lining up, you got to know what the offense is doing. It's a big deal for Roquan Smith to be there.
So now we're going to go into the division breakdown. We're going to put the order of our division and the record we had it. We all did it online. I'll put the link to that website in the description. You can pick every single game of the season all the way up to the Super Bowl. So if you want to try that out, have at it. So that's what we did that on, and we'll just jump right into it. We're going to start with the AFC North. First place, I had the Steelers. Not much surprise there. I had them going 10-6, which is actually a 3-win drop from last year. I think Le'Veon Bell's distraction is going to be a big change, and I think Big Ben's decline is going to continue. It almost seems like he's not interested in football anymore.
I don't know. I also have the Pittsburgh Steelers in first place. I have them at 12-4, a couple more wins than you have them. I think Mason Rudolph being drafted by the Steelers has put some hunger in Ben Roethlisberger again. I think he seems like he wants this season to happen so he can showcase what he can do on the field with those offensive weapons.
Second place, I had the Ravens at 7-9. I really don't think Lamar Jackson, as much of a fan favorite as he is, I don't think there's any way he starts a game this year at quarterback. He's not ready. If he didn't look great in his debut in the Hall of Fame game. He went 3 for 3 passing in the right side of the field, but he went 0 for 3 passing in the left side of the field. So he's definitely got some work to do. Reed's not being in a pro-style office in college. I don't think there's any way he starts this year.
I also have the Ravens in second place in that division, going 8-8. So an average year for the Ravens. That defense is amazing out there that they're putting on the field. But like Reed said, that some of the questions at the quarterback positions, how will Flacco do? Will Lamar Jackson see playing time? Will they both be on the field together? Like John Harbaugh suggesting, I don't know. So I'm being safe with the Ravens, putting them at 8-8.
Or maybe the return of Robert Griffin III as the stud quarterback he was back in the day with Washington.
Let's have him make the team first.
In third place, the Bengals. Blah.
Who that say going to beat them Bengals?
They're just this better be the last year that Andy Dalton's starting. There's no way Marvin Lewis should still be there. Just John Ross better do something, or people are gonna be calling for his head.
What would you have them at record wise?
I had them at 6-10. I think that's pretty generous. If Andy Dalton continues his career trend, I'll be surprised if they even get to 6 games.
I also have the Bengals in third place. I have them at 5-11. Just listen, Bengals fans. AJ Green and Geno Atkins cannot do everything for your football team. That's about all you have right now. The Red Rifle isn't very reliable at quarterback, so I don't see this as a great year for the Bengals.
And last place, unsurprisingly, I do have the Browns, but I do have them at 5-11, a 5-win increase from last year. And if you look at their roster, they have a talented roster. If I don't want to say I picked them to be 5-11 because they're the Browns, but if a different team had this roster, I could have had them at 6 or 7 wins. They really have some talent, but they also have a lot of talent that needs to develop still. People like Myles Garrett are there, but they need a few more years to blossom into who they are.
I also have the Browns in last place, obviously. I have them going 4-12. We'll see if the rookies have an immediate impact. Obviously, they don't think Baker Mayfield will play right away. Denzel Ward appears to be a starting corner. We'll see how he produces in the AFC North, But yeah, there are 4 wins for the Browns this year. I mean, will there be a parade? We'll have to wait to find out.
Why did the Browns take Baker Mayfield? I don't understand why they would take him at number 1. I think he's going to be the 5th or 6th best quarterback out of this draft. I don't see it. I don't care if he has that competitive spirit. Every player that plays in the NFL has that competitive spirit.
Does Jay Cutler have that competitive spirit? Okay. Did he?
No, because that's why he was a mediocre quarterback. So
I don't know. I think Baker Mayfield, he has a history of proving people wrong. We'll see if he can do it again in Cleveland.
Okay, so we're moving on to the AFC South now. First place, I had the Jaguars. I had them at 12-4. Bortles is not a big game quarterback. He's not a quarterback that can carry a team, but I will think he'll do enough to win games in the regular season. They do have a tough division, but I do think that their running game and their defense can pick them up in big games.
Is that weird that the AFC South is a competitive division now? It's been the trash can of divisions in the NFL for a couple years, and it's weird that it's competitive now.
I was going to say 2 years ago, it was Andrew Luck and the Colts and garbage, and now I have three playoff teams from the AFC South.
Yeah, as do I. I have the first place Jacksonville Jaguars as well, also going 12-4. Saxonville, another outstanding year for the defense, I'd imagine. Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye. I don't know how you throw on that team. If the offense can just not lose, or if Blake Bortles can continue somewhat success from the AFC Championship game, he got rolling a little bit in that game. If he can carry that over into this season, good things for Jacksonville.
If it wasn't for Tom Brady, the Jaguars are in the Super Bowl last year. The Jacksonville Jaguars are in the Super Bowl. If Blake Bortles doesn't start to be Blake Bortles again and Tom Brady doesn't do his thing, the Jaguars are in the Super Bowl.
I also think it's worth mentioning, because we haven't yet, defenses love a good running back, and Leonard Fournette is that for the Jaguars. He needs to pound the rock, get a bunch of carries this year. Not much of a receiver, but he'll pound the rock and get that defense time off the field.
Second place, I actually had my biggest riser of the year. I had the Texans at 10-6. Actually, a 6-win increase from last year. They went 4-12, but it's pretty obvious why they did. For the future of the team, Deshaun Watson came in and looked like an absolute superstar after Savage season ended. But he came in, tore his ACL, and they proceeded to fall apart after he left. But if Deshaun stays healthy, Tyrann Mathieu, they got J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless back. Defense won't be on the Vikings or the Jaguars level, but it'll still be a solid defense. And I don't think Deshaun will continue what he did last year, but I still think he will obviously be an upgrade over Tom Savage. So,
yeah, I also have the Texans in second place. I have them a little lower at 9-7. Basically, all the things he said. The players they're getting back from injury cannot be overstated. Deshaun Watson, J.J. Watt, Whitney Merciless, key players on your football team. Then you throw those guys in along with some of the contributors from last year, DeAndre Hopkins, Davion Clowney, and this could be a scary team in the AFC South.
Third place, I have the Tennessee Titans, but I do have them at 9-7, the same records they had last year. I do not think Marcus Mariota is a quarterback that can win you a Super Bowl. I think he's a good quarterback. He does everything right. He's solid. He's not injury prone. I don't think he's a quarterback that can win you a Super Bowl. That of Malcolm Butler's was a big ad. They do have a very underrated defense, and I do think Derrick Henry breaks out in a big way this year without DeMarco Murray there. Although he will not, he's like Leonard Fournette, not a pounder on the ground, but Deion Lewis will take those receptions away.
Tennessee, we've been identical so far. I have Tennessee going 9-7. Mike Vrabel's a little bit of a refresher from last year's team. See if they can improve off of that with him as the new head coach. The offseason additions from New England with Malcolm Butler and Deion Lewis add to a already playoff roster. Derrick Henry, will see if he can improve now that he's the lead back, and I expect good things from Tennessee this year.
If the Titans were in this division, I think they're definitely winning 10 games, but they got 4 games this year against the Texans and the Jaguars. Not saying they're not going to win them, but those are definitely tough games. And last place, I have the Colts. I have them going 4-12. Andrew Luck, he's a complete question mark right now. Even if he comes back, I don't think he'll be the same quarterback that was seen as the future of the NFL. Shoulder injuries are tough, and missing an entire year, even if he is a great and very talented player, I don't think he'll be the same player. And I do think at some point this year, Jacoby Brissett starts, whether it's because of injury or Andrew Luck's just not performing. I do think Jacoby Brissett gets some starts this year.
Now, just so the audience knows, we did these simulations in separate locations. The reason they're similar to each other is just we must both be football geniuses. But I also have the Colts in last place at 4-12. Andrew Luck, even when healthy, cannot save this garbage roster. New coaching staff and what have you cannot save this team. They're a couple of good draft picks and free agent signings away from being relevant in the division again.
Although I do think Malik Hooker is going to be a stud. He looked really good last year coming out of Ohio State, but then he got hurt. But I do think he's the only bright spot on this defense.
He's a ball hawk for sure.
So now probably the most boring division in football, the AFC East. New England Patriots 12-4. Actually, have them winning one less game, but Pats are going to be the Pats. Complete joke of a division. If they don't win all 6 of their division games this year, I will eat a shoe.
I'm marking that down in my record books just so everyone knows. I also have the New England Patriots in first place. I have them at 14-2. There are few things guaranteed in life, but those things are death, taxes, and the New England Patriots winning the AFC East with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. They're so much better. The roster, people are questioning because they lost some people in the offseason. They're going to win their division. They're going to win a whole bunch of games. They'll probably make it to the AFC Championship or Super Bowl again. That's just what they do in New England. I can't overstate that enough.
If you look at their wide receiver depth chart, since we are Slater Hall Sports Hour, former Iowa wide receiver and kick returner Riley McCarron is actually second on their depth chart at wide receiver. And if you think about it, he was mostly a returner for Iowa, and now he's going to catch passes from Tom Brady. That just shows you what the Patriots do with what they have.
Hey, trouble wide receivers have a history of going to New England. Do we see a Des Bryant sighting in Massachusetts?
Des Bryant wouldn't like going there because he doesn't get all the targets he thinks he deserves, but his passion for the game might lead him to sign somewhere. Second place, it shouldn't even be considered a second place, but I do have the Jets there at 5-11. I think their quarterback battle will be interesting with Josh McCown, Teddy Bridgewater, and Sam Darnold. I do think that by the end of the season, Darnold's starting, and I do think the start of the year, Josh McCown is starting. I don't see why they signed Teddy Bridgewater. They knew they had the third pick, so they knew they could get a quarterback if they wanted to. And I don't really know why they signed Teddy, because this just puts him in a crappy spot. You don't know what he's going to be able to do. But they do have some talent. They have players like Jamal Adams on the defense, and Robbie Anderson had some issues in the offseason, but I do think they have a few pieces here and there, but I still think they're a few years away from getting anything going.
I also have the Jets in second place in the AFC East, going 6-10. I love Josh McCown, former Bear. He's a perfect bridge quarterback, but that's exactly what this is for the Jets, a bridge year. They've got some talent on their roster. They need to develop that talent, and maybe when Brady and Belichick retire in a decade, because they want to do this forever apparently, we'll finally see someone else win the division, and maybe it's the Jets.
Third place, I have the Bills at 4-10, losing 5 more games than they did last year. AJ McCarron's not much to speak of. He's always been a replacement quarterback, but when he's playing behind Andy Dalton, he looks pretty good. And Josh Allen, I think, will be starting by the end of the year, but they just have no targets at all. I mean, Zay Jones had issues in the offseason. The situation with LaShawn McCoy is pretty sketchy. They do have some bright spots on defense with Micah Hyde and Tre'Davious White, but they're going to be bad. They're going to be back to being the Bills this year compared to their 9-7 season last year.
Now I'm going to correct you. You said 4-10. I'm assuming you meant 4-12.
Yes,
because
sorry.
That's how math works. I have the Bills in third place, also going a measly 3-13. I think it's going to be a cold year in Buffalo. 3-13. I just don't see them doing much better than that. LaShawn McCoy is only noteworthy player on offense, and who knows if he'll be on the field with his offseason incidents, allegedly. But yeah, not good things out of Buffalo this year.
Last place, Miami Dolphins, 3-13. There's just not much going anywhere. They don't have Sue anymore. Tannehill's coming off an ACL. An average quarterback coming off an ACL injury. Shipped off Jay Ajayi. Shipped off Jarvis Landry. There's no way Adam Gase, we'll talk about this more, there's no way Adam Gase makes it through the season. I do expect them to have a top 3 pick, and I do think they'll take a quarterback this year in the draft.
Yeah, I have the Dolphins going 2-14. Many people would label Ryan Tannehill as being a bust, some injury concerns and history in his career, and he just hasn't been great when he's been on the field. I don't expect good things or even mediocre things, which would be generous if you're the Dolphins. I don't see them going anywhere this year.
I don't. This is a topic for a different day, but I don't think Tannehill's a bust because when you look at him when he came out, he was really raw, and it was almost a surprise that he got taken so high. But he did have some success early, but I wouldn't say he's a bust per se. So next we'll move on to the AFC West. I have the Chargers at 11-5. I'll talk more about Phillip Rivers later in our awards section, but I do think he's going to be a stud this year. He's got lots of weapons on both sides. Travis Benjamin, Keenan Allen, Mike and Tyrell Williams, Melvin Gordon in the backfield. Obviously, the loss of Hunter Henry and then Antonio Gates retiring hurts, but I do think he has a lot of weapons. And I'll talk more about Joey Bosa later, but the Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram combination could be probably the best pass rushing duo in football right now.
Yeah, I also have the Chargers first place 11-5. Bosa and Melvin Ingram should give offensive linemen nightmares. The pass rushing ability out of those two, the amount of versatility in their moves, the bull rush, the spin move, everything, they just get to the passer, and it's going to be a good year in Los Angeles, but for both teams this year.
This is the tightest division in football. I have my Chiefs at 8-8. Patrick Mahomes, as talented as he is, and as the arm that he is going to make a lot of mistakes. He will easily throw 20 interceptions, which is not what Chiefs fans are used to with Alex Smith throwing 5 picks a year because he checks the ball down on 20 passes a game. But he's going to make a lot of mistakes, and Kareem Hunt's not going to have as big of a year. They do have a lot of weapons in Kelsey, Hunt, Hill, Watkins. They do have the talent, but I think Mahomes is still a year away from making a serious impact, and the defense is bad. I'm not even going to lie. The defense is bad. I don't even think losing Marcus Peters hurts. I think it was addition by subtraction with him, but Justin Houston hasn't been the same player since his 20-sack season. Eric Berry's coming off an Achilles tear. They lost Derek Johnson because he's old and oft injured. They don't have a true second cornerback behind recently acquired Kendall Fuller. I just don't think they're going to have a good year.
Second place, for me, it's the Oakland Raiders, and I have them going 8-8. Can I just say how happy I am that John Gruden is back as a head football coach of the National Football League team? What a personality. He's going to be a fun guy to watch, but there's lots of question marks with Gruden's new team. The wide receiver core is very hit or miss. Jordy Nelson, Amari Cooper, Martavis Bryant, that could be a deadly receiving core, or it could be, wow, that's a lot of incompletions.
Would have been deadly 2 years ago, but third place, kind of. They're tied for second. I have the Broncos at 8-8 also. I think Case Keenum, he's not going to be as good as he was last year, but he'll do enough to win games. Their defense is still good. Chris Harris Jr., Von Miller. Talk more about Bradley Chubb later, but I think Bradley Chubb's going to be a stud this year. Bradley Roby isn't as good as Aqib Talib, but he's still serviceable on the other side. So I think they'll win games just because they're playing a fourth place schedule, but they're not going to be able to hit the playoffs this year.
I have the Kansas City Chiefs in third place of the division, going 7-9. Like my partner here stated, Patrick Mahomes, new addition at quarterback. He's finally going to start this year. I can't wait to see him throw the ball as far as he can and have Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins sprint as fast as they can and try to catch it. That'll be an entertaining offense this year. I don't think they'll be nearly as good as they were last year, but at least it's a change for Kansas City.
If you guys remember the Incredibles movie when Mr. Incredible is throwing the football to Dash and he throws it over the horizon and Dash runs back and gets it, that's going to be what's like this year with Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. It's going to be backyard football. And last place, I have the Raiders at 7-9. So I have all three teams that are second, third, and fourth, 8-8, 8-8, and 7-9. I think those are all interchangeable. I think all those teams could vie for a playoff spot. But the offense is back to form, I guess. Marshawn Lynch is old, and same thing, injury-prone Jordy Nelson. Martavis Bryant's a question mark. Amari Cooper had a terrible year, lots of drops, and their defense is not good. I mean, a few years ago they looked like they had life, and then Derek Carr got hurt, and Connor Cook happened, and I just don't think they're the same team as they were.
I have the Broncos in last place at 6-10. I mean, obviously Miller and Chubb off the edges are be scary for opposing offenses, but I'm just not that excited about the Case Keenum signing. I mean, he did an excellent job for the Vikings last year. I don't know if he's the QB of the future for the Broncos this year. I mean, John Elway thinks so, and he knows more about football than I do, clearly, but I'm not expecting much from the Broncos this year.
So if we're just going over it, I have the division winners of the Steelers, Jaguars, Patriots, and Chargers, and then I have the two wild card teams as the Texans and the Titans.
Yeah, and I think I have all the same, don't I? Patriots, Chargers, Jaguars,
Steelers.
Yeah, and I have the same two wild card teams, so we have an identical playoff field in the AFC.
We never agreed on anything ever about sports, so this is fairly surprising. So now over to the NFC. We're going to start with the NFC North. I have the Vikings in first at 12-4. I think that Kirk Cousins is better than Case Keenum.
You like that?
I do like that. I think the Vikings are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Obviously, they were last year. I don't think they should beat the Saints last year. Obviously, I had the Saints in my Super Bowl pick. But the Vikings, Kirk Cousins isn't elite, but he does have good weapons in Diggs and Thielen. And I'll talk more about Dalvin Cook later. But they do. I think they easily have the best defense in the NFL. And I think Xavier Rhodes is the best cornerback in the NFL, undoubtedly.
Wow, undoubtedly, really?
Undoubtedly.
Okay.
Physical specimen. So then the Harrison Smith's the best safety in football. Everson Griffin.
Look at all these claims he's making, just throwing them out.
Everson Griffin's a stud. I think they're definitely one of the top three most talented teams in football.
I also have the Vikings in first place, 12-4. Same things he mentioned. Cousins acquisition, he should bring some life to the offense, although Case Keenum did an exceptional job last year. The defense is scary, either them or Jacksonville as the best defense in football. So many playmakers everywhere, every position is stacked. Good year to be a Vikings fan.
Second place, I have the Packers at 11-5. I do have them as a 5-win increase, obviously. Not having Aaron Rodgers last year is the only reason they went 7-9. But I do think Aaron Rodgers, I don't want to say carries them because they do have other talent, but he's what makes this team go. The addition of Jimmy Graham helps because he does have a history of using tight ends a lot. And the defense has improved, but it's still not great. I mean, the history of Aaron Rodgers, he's never had a great defense. He's always been what carries the team, like I said. So they're good, they're not great, and I do think they'll have enough to win a lot of games.
I also have the Packers in second. Rodgers has had some good defenses. Charles Woodson, Defensive Player of the Year back in the day. I mean, he hasn't had the 85 Bears or anything, but he's had adequate defenses.
I said he has had good defenses. He's never had a great defense.
Packers at second place, 12-4. Aaron Rodgers, a healthy Aaron Rodgers equals the playoffs for the Packers. Undoubtedly, he's coming back with some edge to him. He wants to prove some things that the Packers need him, obviously. Last year without him was a mess with Brett Hundley. Jimmy Graham and Aaron Rodgers could easily have a dozen touchdown connections this year, if not more. That's a scary thing for the NFC North. I, as a Bears fan, was not pleased to see Jimmy Graham signing with the Packers because that connection is deadly.
Third place, I have the Bears at 7-9. I still think that they're a few years away from contending. Defense is legit. They have some real players, but they're still too young on offense. And I'll talk more about Trubisky later, but I'm not high on Trubisky.
Oh, that's a surprise. He's not high in the Bears quarterback. No, I have the Bears as a Bears fan in third place, going 8-8 this season. There's a lot of talk they could be this year's Rams team. New coach Matt Nagy, offensive coordinator from Kansas City. Year 2 for Mitch Trubisky after a mediocre, I'll say, rookie season. They've added some pass catchers. They actually have people who can catch the ball this year, and Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, Trey Burton, draft Anthony Miller. Dynamic backfield, one of the best backfields in football with Howard and Cohen. Big things are coming in for Chicago.
I do like the hiring of Matt Nagy. A lot of people don't know this, but Matt Nagy called plays in the second half of the season for the Chiefs when they took off, and he stopped calling plays in the second half because Andy Reid wanted it back when they collapsed. Matt Nagy, I think, was a great hire. He's a great person to have for Trubisky to take off.
Was Nagy calling the plays when they lost to the Giants last year?
I was unfortunately not there to watch it. I think it was actually after that game that Matt Nagy started calling plays because Andy Reid is looking at a menu. And last place, I have the Lions at 5-11. I have them as the biggest fallers in this season. I have them at 5-11. They won 9 games last year. Stafford he puts up odd numbers. He doesn't win big games. He does have some weapons. He does still have Marvin Jones, Golden Tate. They signed LeGarrette Blount. I'll talk about their backfield in a little bit, but the defense has to get stops, and I don't think they're a team that's going to be able to do that.
Also have the Lions in last place, have them going 6-10. This is a pivotal year for Matthew Stafford it's kind of a prove it year for him. I mean, he's been a pretty good quarterback in the past. This is where he needs to take the next step and prove that he can take the Lions consistently to the playoffs after missing out last year. They have a new coach, new opportunity. It's time to prove yourself as an elite quarterback, Matthew Stafford.
What do you mean prove it? He just got a very lucrative. He obviously proved it. He just got one of the biggest extensions.
What starting
in
quarterback
history.
doesn't get a huge extension anymore? I'm saying if I'm Detroit, I want to see Matthew Stafford prove that he can take the Detroit Lions to the playoffs year after year instead of watching some of the other teams in the division do it.
I still think that they're a talented team. I think if I did it again, I'd give them a few more wins, but that is a very tough division. Very good top 2 teams, a team that's still rising. I think they're definitely better than a 5-11 record, but their division puts them in a tough spot.
Shout out to Jim Bob Cooter. I didn't think you were a real person, the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, just because of your name, but apparently you are. So congratulations.
So now we're going to move over to the NFC South. I have the Saints at 12-4. I think they have the best offense in football. Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram will come back and he'll be fine. Sean Payton said they don't want to increase Kamara's workload because he was at his prime effectiveness last year. So I think Kamara takes off to start the year. They have Michael Thomas on offense. Defense, they still have Marshawn Lattimore, and I think he'll rise to top 5 cornerback this year. They do have pieces on defense, and they showed flashes last year, but I do have them at 12-4. I think they're a real Super Bowl contender again this year.
Also, I have the Saints in first place in the NFC South. I have them going 12-4. This is the best roster the Saints have had since their Super Bowl winning team in 2009. It went underreported that Drew Brees set the NFL record for completion percentage in a season last year. He didn't get as many passing yards as he has in the past because they're so run-oriented with the 2 beasts in the backfield, but Drew Brees is as reliable as ever, and this is a scary team.
Second place, I have the Falcons. I have the same records last year at 10-6. I mean, it's basically the same year. I think the big thing for them that's keeping them from being better is their play calling. Losing Kyle Shanahan to the 49ers, you could see a noticeable difference between their play calling and their Super Bowl run. And then last year, Devonta Freeman wasn't as involved. Julio Jones was so inconsistent last year. I think the play calling is the big thing that's holding them back.
With Jones's big body, you'd assume he'd have a lot more touchdown receptions than he does get. And you look at his stats, he racks up receiving yards, for the most part receptions, but touchdowns seems to be missing the last couple of years. We'll see if that gets fixed.
I think this could also, like it has in the past, having Tevin Coleman as that other back. I think Tevin Coleman is 100% a starting caliber running back, and for him to split time with Devonta Freeman, that gives the Falcons a Saints-type backfield with those 2 back there.
Now, I'll actually go to my second place team, the Atlanta Falcons. 11-5. A lot of the same things Reed said. I see the addition of Calvin Ridley, I think, could be interesting. You add him to the receiving corps, see what he can do after a productive career at Alabama. I think they have a sneaky good, I won't call it a very good, but a sneaky good defense that could happen this year. Dan Quinn leading it with all his success in Seattle before. Watch out for the Falcons this year. I think they'll snatch up another wild card.
I think that Mohamed Sanu could be a starting quarterback for any team in the AFC East, not named the Patriots.
You know, he's good for a wide receiver pass every once in a while.
That's undoubtedly one of the most fun parts of football is non-quarterbacks throwing the ball. So now third place, somehow I have the Panthers in third place at 8-8. I'm not high on their offense. I think Christian McCaffrey's a good piece, but he's not a ground and pound back. Cam Newton's too inconsistent. They lost a lot of their targets. Greg Olsen got hurt last year. I do think they'll be good, not great. Same thing with defense. They're good, not great. Doesn't have the same teeth it used to. Thomas Davis is getting older. Kuechly's had some concussion issues. They don't have Josh Norman anymore, obviously. I think they're good, but I think they'll contend for a wild card spot, but I don't think they're the team they used to be.
I have Carolina in third place also, 9-7. I have them at this year. Do you see Kelvin Benjamin roasting Cam Newton today? You didn't see that?
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
Saying he would have been successful with any other quarterback. That's just not kind to Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton will have, I don't know, with play calling under Norv Turner, I believe, is calling the plays for him this year. We'll see how that works out. I think Christian McCaffrey will get even more involved this year on offense. Luke Kuechly obviously will carry that defense. He's a relentless linebacker, this generation's Brian Urlacher. But Thomas Davis is missing the first couple games with that suspension. We'll see how they hold up without him.
Fourth place, I have the Buccaneers, 2-14. This is Jameis Winston's last straw. Unless he turns out to be the stud they thought he was going to be, I don't think there's any way he's their starting quarterback next year. It's not worth the headaches. He's not what he was planned out to be. He's a distraction off the field. They have no running game. Hope they trade Mike Evans because he's a stud. Defense is bad. Brent Grimes is 35 years old, and their lead cornerback. Buccaneers are not good, especially considering they were a team that was a dark horse for the playoffs last year. They're bad.
I also have the Buccaneers in the basement of the NFC South. I have them going 3-13. It's been a disaster of an offseason for the Buccaneers and Jameis Winston. I foresee a disaster of a season, and I think when we're doing this podcast a year from now, there's going to be a lot of new faces around the Tampa Bay locker room and front office.
So going on the NFC East, I have the Eagles in the lead at 12-4. I don't think Nick Foles is good, but Wentz has to be fully healthy when you bring him back. If you try to rush him back, that's only going to hurt you in the long run. Even if Nick Foles starts 2 or 3 weeks to start the year, it's worth it. Carson Wentz is an MVP candidate when healthy, as shown by last year. I think he was going to win if he didn't get hurt. But one of the top 5 defenses in football, great offense, lots of targets, good enough running game, good line. They're just an all-around solid team.
I also have the Eagles in first place, going 11-5. The big story is, can they avoid the Super Bowl hangover? I think they've got the veteran presence. One of the leaders there, Malcolm Jenkins, that I think they'll be able to avoid that hangover. There's just a clear favorite in the NFC East and one of the clear favorites to maybe go back to the Super Bowl this year.
Second place, I had the Cowboys at 9-7, same record as they did last year. Zeke, contrary to a lot of offenses, the quarterback isn't the motor in this offense. Zeke is the motor. Obviously, as you saw last year, they kind of self-destructed when Zeke fell out. Dak is a good quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback. He can't do it without a running game. And I think he has a better year than he had last year, was having Zeke here hopefully for the whole year. And the defense isn't great. I think they have enough over there to win games and go 9-7. But the loss of Witten retiring and Dez getting cut, I think
Dez.
Yeah, I think that'll be the dagger in this team. That if they still had those two, I think they're probably making the playoffs. But I don't have them in the playoffs right now.
I have the Washington Redskins in second place in the division, going 8-8. I don't think the change at quarterback is that big of a concern for the Redskins. Alex Smith, you can plug and play. Not much of a downgrade from Kirk Cousins. Other than that, the roster is basically the same. I mean, running back, you had Darius Geis from LSU, combined with some IAP Ryan Chris Thompson, could be interesting, but I just think this is an average Washington team, and they'll finish at 8-8.
I have the Giants in third place at 8-8, 5 wins over last year. The O-line is still very, very bad, which I think hurts Saquon this year because it's so bad, and Eli obviously will be Eli. He'll do everything the 38-year-old average quarterback can do. I think the defense will prove to be a lot better than last year, unless Janoris Jenkins kills another man. But I think they're a very average team. They're better than their 13-3 record was last year, getting Odell and Sterling Shepard back.
It hasn't been confirmed that he was involved in that. I just feel like for legal matters we should say that. Third place, I have the Dallas Cowboys going 7-9. The question is this year, can Dak bounce back to what he did in his rookie season? I just don't. I think that was him playing at a higher level than he's usually going to. That was just a rookie phenom kind of a season. I think last year's more of the typical Dak Prescott. They get Zeke back for a full season without the off-field distractions. He'll carry them with that fantastic offensive line, and Sean Lee will try and have that defense do something.
Last place, I have the Redskins at 7-9, so I have Cowboys at 9-7, Giants at 8-8, Redskins at 7-9, so I have it very close there too. I don't think Alex Smith is a downgrade. I think Alex Smith is actually an upgrade over Kirk Cousins, especially with their offense where they have a running game and they have receivers. I think Alex Smith is an upgrade, but I just think that they have a tough division, tough NFC, and he does have a lot of weapons to work with on the outside and on the backfield. And they have a solid defense. Ryan Kerrigan's about as solid and consistent as they come, but I do think they're just a 7-9 team.
Yeah, in last place I have the Giants going 5-11 this year. At least Bob McAdoo's gone. I mean, it was a disaster for him last season. I'll be surprised if he ever gets a head coaching job in the NFL ever again. It's not going to happen. But yeah, Saquon will have a huge impact, obviously, at running back and that veteran presence in the backfield with Jonathan Stewart as well. We'll see if Odell, makes nice with the Giants, signs a nice lucrative extension, or if this is his last year in New York. Remains to be seen. But, step up from last year, but still a ways to go for the Giants.
So now we're on to the NFC West, last division. I have the Rams in first place at 12-4. They are, without question, the most talented team in football. I think they're better than a 12-4 record. They just have a tough schedule. I mean, they added Peters, they added Talib, and Ndamukong Suh. I mean, they still have the best running back in football in Todd Gurley. Jared Goff broke out last year. They added Brandon Cooks. I mean, this team has about everything you need in a Super Bowl contender. I think they're the favorites in the NFC this year.
And I just want to add fantastic special teams. But I also have the Rams in first place going 13-3. If the Rams are without question the team of the offseason with the acquisitions they've made that my co-host has mentioned. Some of the teams in that division are going to take some step back, Seattle and Arizona, and I think it's a clear path for the Los Angeles Rams to win this division.
Second place, I have the 49ers actually at 8-8. I am unsure whether Jimmy Garoppolo is the real deal. He won games. Yes, I'm not denying that he's 7-0 as a starter. He won games 5-0 with the 49ers, but he's not putting up big numbers. They do have a legit front seven. They do have Jimmy Garoppolo's got weapons. I'll talk about one of his weapons, Marquise Goodwin, a little bit later, but I have the 49ers at 8-8, which may be lower than a lot of people have, but I do have them at 8-8.
I have also the 49ers in second place, slightly higher at 9-7. This is a prove-it year for Jimmy Garoppolo. Different type of prove-it year than I talked about with Matthew Stafford.
An actual prove-it year.
I'd prove it year for Matthew Stafford, like a second prove-it year. It's a thing. I'm making it a thing. But Jimmy Garoppolo, real prove-it year. He's undefeated as a starter. That obviously is not going to continue to be the thing. But we'll see if he brought life to that 49ers football team that was kind of coasting last year under the first year of Kyle Shanahan. We'll see if that offense can turn into something this year in year two with the system.
CJ Beathard's still on the team. Just since we have the Hawkeye logo on our podcast, I might as well mention that CJ Beathard's still the backup.
People on the team really seem to like CJ Beathard. He's a tough, hard-nosed, just a great football player. And he's the kind of guy you want as your teammate. And he's a backup quarterback. You won't get any headlines, but I'd like to have CJ Beathard on my team.
Third place, I have the Seahawks at 7-9. Russell Wilson is an elite quarterback, and I think getting Rashad Penny will help. The offensive line isn't great. They signed Dwayne Brown to an extension, so he's decent. Doug Baldwin's still good. Their defense, I think it's fairly bold to say their defense is going to be in the bottom half of the league this year. I mean, they don't have it. Earl Thomas, like I said, is the only person left of the Legion of Boom. Bobby Wagner is a stud, but other than that, Cam Chancellor retired, Cliff Averill retired, Sherman's gone. It's not good. I think this is definitely the first year that people start to realize the Seahawks dynasty is over.
Pete Carroll might soon move into a retirement home. Remains to be seen. I have the Seahawks also in third place going 6-10. I mean, they've got the quarterback of the offense in Russell Wilson. They've got the quarterback of the defense in Bobby Wagner. That's about it. They've got some nice pieces elsewhere in Doug Baldwin and what have you. New running back in Rashad Penny that they drafted in the first round. We'll see. He's not listed as a starter now. I think later in the season he'll be the workhorse for sure. This is a downward slope for the Seahawks. I don't see them getting better at all this year.
One person I think people forget about, Chris Carson last year, who was a rookie from Oklahoma State. After they had a few injuries and Chris Carson took over, he was looking pretty solid, and I was watching the game. I picked him up from a fantasy team, and he snapped his ankle. So him and Rashad Penny could be actually pretty decent for Russell Wilson in the backfield.
Russell Wilson accounted for all but one offensive touchdown last year. He was running for his life. Congrats to you, Russell Wilson, for being a fantastic football player. I hope you remain safe this year.
I don't remember the exact number. I believe it was like he accounted for 83% of their offense or something like that. He's a great guy and a great player, but
he's the definition last year of a single-person offense.
Last place, I have the Cardinals at 5-11. Sam Bradford, who knows? I mean, when he's healthy, he's proven to be half decent at least, especially with the Vikings. Not as much with the Rams. With the Vikings, he was. I think Josh Rosen will definitely be starting by the end of the year. I'd say he's probably starting by midseason. As much as I hate to say it, because David Johnson's a good player, I think he'll he'll struggle a little bit because the unreliable quarterback situation have faced a lot of loaded boxes. I think he'll struggle compared to what he did 2 years ago before he got hurt.
I also have the Arizona Cardinals in last place, 4-12. I talked about those guarantees in life earlier. Let's add Sam Bradford getting injured to the mix I mentioned earlier. The team has some pretty good talent, actually. I mean, you look at Larry Fitzgerald, Patrick Peterson, Chandler Jones, David Johnson. Lots of talent. I don't see it translating to a lot of wins this year for the Cardinals. They lose Bruce Arians. They were 8-8, a very mediocre team last year. I believe the only 8-8 team in football. It's a downward step for the Cardinals this year. Hopefully, the year after, Josh Rosen is the confirmed starter and he can take the team under his wing.
They after losing John Brown, they really don't have a number 2 behind Larry Fitzgerald. I think Chandler Jones is. I don't even know if it's a dark horse. I think he should be a top 5 favorite for Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's very underrated because nobody really pays attention to him because the Cardinals are so mediocre. But he has been a stud since he left the Patriots.
Yeah, the Patriots traded him, and everyone forgets about Chandler Jones. Very productive the last couple years.
It's like Jamie Collins, except Chandler Jones is still good. So if we're going over the NFC, I have my division winners as the Vikings, Saints, Eagles, and Rams, and then I have the Packers and Falcons as my wild card teams.
Yeah, I have the Vikings, Saints, Eagles, and Rams as my division winners, and then I have the Packers as my 5th seed wild card, and the Falcons as my 6th seed.